Sylvia Czech and Karen Randall from Randall Farm, the owner, one of the owners, and we have Sylvia to demonstrate our terrarium. And the presentation is called "What's Old is New Again." As you probably know, it's become very popular now, the terrariums, which they were popular way back then. So it's perfect for us, and we're more than happy to have both of these people with us. Sylvia started in the industry when she was 15 years old. She worked in a greenhouse, cleaning geraniums and weeding under benches. After graduating from Stockbridge School of Agriculture at UMass in 1980, I probably shouldn't say that, but she was a grower of tropical plants in Apopka, Florida for more than a year. Being a true New Englander, she moved back to Western Mass and worked in the greenhouse growing seasonal plants. Once her first daughter was born, she worked in the retail business as a florist for 16 years and enjoyed competing in floral design. She started working at Randall's in 1997 and is still working there currently, serving customers in the plant and floral area. And let's welcome Sylvia.
Thank you.
And along with her is Karen Randall, which is, again, I said, the owner of Randall Farm. And Randall Farm, I don't know if you've ever been there, but they have the greatest produce and deli.
Right.
It's great. And also their plants are very local too. And we appreciate you coming as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. We want to thank you for having us here this afternoon. Sylvia made the engagement, and I have a couple more things to say about Sylvia. She doesn't just work in the greenhouse area. She is the manager of the retail greenhouse at Randall's Farm, and all the events that go on outside, Sylvia pretty much oversees. I also call her my creative director, because if you've seen any of our spots on Channel 40, we have some 2-minute infomercials that run on Wednesday mornings and on Saturday mornings right before Good Morning America. Sylvia puts those all together. She has the knack, the style, so I have to give her all of the credit. I'm the face and the voice, but she does all of the work and sets it all up. And she's a beautiful floral designer too. So she's a real treasure to have at Randall's Farm.
Thank you.
Thank you. Today we're going to talk about what's new, what's old is new again, terrariums, gardens under glass that go back to the 1800s, because it was discovered that plants in the winter did well under glass away from the pollution in England. And that was the Wardian case.
Yeah.
So that was the beginning of the popularity of terrariums. Then they've gone in and out of style over the years, but they're perfect for the way we live today in small places, condominiums. A lot of people don't have room to garden outside, and also for winter gardening, because you can have a beautiful little garden that you can look at all year round indoors with a terrarium. They're miniature greenhouses, you know. They're just miniature little greenhouses. They have their own ecosystem. They don't need a lot of care. And once you put it together, or once you purchase one and find the right spot for it, they just keep on growing. They create their own moisture inside. The plants don't need a lot of direct sunlight, because that will burn them through the glass. So they're perfect for, I think, the way most of us live today, and very carefree. They water themselves just about if they're set up with the right amount of moisture. A little misting is about all they need.
We have one here, if you notice, and it doesn't take many plants to it, and it can get actually overgrown very easily. So what you want to do is you have to be a little bit careful on how many plants you plant in here. So this one here, we only have one plant plus a little bit of the moss right here. So it's very easily to prune that moss. If it starts getting overgrown or starting to come up over the case, all you need to do is just rip off, or just really almost like cut quite a few of it out. And it'll just keep it looking very nice and very easy to care for. Again, you can tell when it's dry it's because you always see a little bit of that soil on here. So if it's looking dry, all you need to do is you can either mist it, just take a regular mister like this, and then just mist it around the sides. Where's my mister? I didn't check that first. So just by misting the glass and letting it run around the side is all you have to do. Or if it is quite dry, you want to do is just water it very, very easily. You know, just a little bit of water into this. Because if you water it too much, you're going to see that collection. And if you do notice that you're getting a lot of puddling going on here, all you need to really do is just lay it on its side. Just you want to remove some of that. You don't want to keep that puddle in there because what's going to happen, you're going to rot the roots out.
If you're creating your own terrarium, you can use almost any clear glass container. If you have a favorite vase that you don't use anymore, we have some big vases over here that sometimes, you know, you just outgrow the use of them. They make great terrariums. An old cookie jar or canister set, a canning jar. There's a canning jar right here. They can all be converted to terrariums very easily. So you don't really have to go out and buy anything. If you have a clear glass jar that you really like, you can put a terrarium in it. And there are closed terrariums and open terrariums depending on what kind of plant you're going to put inside the terrarium.
My favorite place to find the glass is going to tag sales. I love tag sales. I love going to tag sales. I love going to Goodwill because you see those funky things that you don't normally find. Yes, you can go in and get a cube anywhere, but if you go to these Goodwill stores or if you go to tag sales, that's where you find your unique ones that maybe are a little bit cut on an angle, or you'll find that old glass jar because nobody cans anymore, of course. And then sometimes
some people do.
Some people do. I don't can anymore. And it's actually, you could even use some that have a little bit of tint to it, maybe that little bit greener tint, but I wouldn't go with too much color because then the light won't get in as easily.
So, you know, once you select your container, you want to construct your terrarium, and Sylvia will show you how to assemble that. We're going to talk about several different kinds of terrariums. Most of these are made with tropical plants that are slow growing. You want to choose plants that are compatible so that they need the same moisture and light, and you want to remember not to put a terrarium in direct light, direct sunlight, direct window light, because the glass acts as a magnifying glass and can burn the plants. So they need indirect light, and they just thrive on their own unless you're planting. We're just going to start with tropical. We also are going to talk about succulent terrariums that are open because they're cactus-like, and some of our newer ideas later on.
All right, we're going to go with this now. So we're going to take your regular container, make sure it's cleaned, because you want to make sure there's no disease or anything that's happened in there, any extra bugs or anything. So let's get a nice
Run it through
clean.
the dishwasher.
Yeah.
Wash it with a little bleach and water. You don't want any bacteria to grow, any fungus.
So then we're going to use a little bit of gravel. So we want to put about 1 inch or 2 of gravel. I did do some handouts there, which has some like basic instructions of how to create one.
And you want to use mostly sterile soils, not garden soil, because it is going to be enclosed and you don't want fungus or bacteria to grow and kill your plants.
Right.
So commercially prepared soils generally are better.
And rocks, if you're going to use any kind of rock from outside, make sure you wash it and clean it. You don't want to just pick up gravel outside because it might have some salts in it or something like that. So I just used a regular river gravel here, and it's all been already all cleaned. Then you want to put a little bit of your charcoal, your horticultural charcoal here. And what that does is that it keeps the water filtered. So if you do tend to overwater or have overwatered it, what it's going to do is that it's going to keep the odor down, because you don't want it to smell like a swamp or skunky, and that's exactly what will happen if you keep it too wet. So just a very thin layer of the charcoal. Then we're going to use a basic potting soil. And the potting soil is something that's nice and light. We have some perlite in here, vermiculite. I usually suggest is that you add a little bit of moisture to the soil. It's a little bit easier to work with.
And then that'll also continue to add moisture to your terrarium.
Right. So we're going to put just a little bit of soil on here, and then we're going to arrange the plants. What you can do is this is our main level. Then you select a few plants And I'm just going to say, well, I'm going to kind of plant them in a basic shape, just like a C. I kind of like a little C shape type of thing, not too close to the sides. And sometimes if it's a little bushy, you can always divide them. These are great little size. It's only a 2-inch size plant, and we carry quite a few of those. I have a little bit of miniature African violet, which isn't going to get as big as your regular African violet. It stays fairly small. And a peperomia. And I chose it because it has a lot of textural difference to it. See all that little rippling in there? It's called peperomia. Another one of my favorites I do like is this one here, is Fittonia or nerve plant. A lot of nice variegation in the foliage. This one here is pink splash, which also can be divided very easily. Here's another peperomia. Isn't this one unique?
That's my favorite.
Yeah.
It reminds me of an orchid.
Yeah,
Just the way it grows. It doesn't get that kind of bloom, but the way it grows.
Yeah, it has a lot of distinctive layering, a nice thick textural. You have strawberry begonia, which is actually a kind of a fun, looks like a little strawberry plant. But it is a kind of a begonia. We have nephitis or arrowhead, as you can see the little arrow shape that it makes, arrowhead. And of course, regular ivy. I love ivy. Ivies is, you know, kind of like that little black dress of the plant world. Everybody likes ivy, you know. So I do like that. So then I'm going to take them out of the pots, and all I do to take them out of the pot, you just kind of squeeze the pot just a couple of times like this, and then it should come out very easily. And I want to just tuck them right into that soil. And depending how deep or how big your container is, don't be afraid to give your soil line a little bit of variation. You can build it up a little bit more on one side. You can make it look like a little bit of a valley. So you don't have to have the soil just flat.
It's an indoor landscape. It's a little miniature garden, so you want to sculpt it the way it appeals to you, the way it looks to fit the room you're going to put it in or just your eye.
So I'm going to just add a little bit of extra soil to cover the root balls. And then the hard part is done.
And it wasn't that hard. Pretty easy if you have the right
So I just planted those in. And then what we're going to do is, this is the fun part. It's kind of like decorating. When you're gardening, you always do your layering. First you have your flower bed, you put all the soil in it. Then you want to put your trees or shrubs that you want to do. Then the next layer would be your perennials. And then the next layer would be your annuals. And then the final layer is all those extra little trinkets, you know, type of thing. So what I do like using is a variation of stuff. You can use your gravel. We have white stone. We also have volcano rock, which has a little bit more of a red hue to it. You can use natural items like just regular tree branch, and you can just, you know, break it and just stick that in there. And that's what I did with this one right here. And which is nice is that ivy's going to attach to it, and it just kind of gives it a little bit more of an interest. So you use the whole volume of that vase. So you could have even had a taller vase and still use that. White branches or any kind of branches you can use. Glass. Glass is very popular right now, either in your regular, you know, this is probably like 1.5 inches diameter, or you can use this little smaller one. And we also have this crushed glass, which is actually this year's favorite of mine. And I love this amber. It's such a warm feel to it. And you can buy this. I think we even used it right there in that.
We used it for a pebble tray for humidity in this garden. This is a cocodema is the name of this type of a garden, but we use the amber glass as the pebble tray in the bottom to water it from the bottom and add the humidity. But it's very decorative.
So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to add a little bit of this natural river rock in here. And you can keep layering it. It's like when you have hardwood floor, and then you put a little extra carpet on it, and then you put another little extra carpet on that. So we're just kind of layering all this. Mosses are actually very good. Also my favorites is the natural mushrooms. You know, these are actually kind of fun, and I just leave them out. and dry them. Do be careful that if you're going to use something like that is that you let it dry out in case there's any insect that has started. One time me and my daughter picked all these pine cones. I said, oh, that'll be nice, just a nice vase like this with all these little pine cones and acorns. And we're sitting at the table and all of a sudden you see all these little worms coming out of these acorns. I'm like, ah!
So if you do that, the best thing to do is put them in a slow oven on a cookie sheet.
Dry them out good.
Yeah, 150, and let them really dry out well, or 200, and it'll kill anything before you decide to put them in a decorative vase. We learn those lessons the hard way.
That's part of gardening, though, too, sometimes. You know, they'll say, oh, I really want this plant. You know it's not going to really go very well in that area, especially if it's a shade plant and you want to put it in a little bit extra sun because you like the color of it. But you can always move it around. That's part of gardening. There's always that learning curve. Some things grow better than others. And then I actually like some of those. If you ever go on vacation, you pick up a nice stone or something like that. So you can do that. Pick up shells when you go to the beach, and why not include that in here? Actually, I got these from Florida, Sanibel Island. I just love that place. Mm-hmm. So by adding just a little bit of tumble stone, I'm just going to kind of give that little extra addition, that little accessory. It's kind of like jewelry to your decor. And see, like this here. So we have that natural stone. I have a little bit of this, which this plant will kind of grow over it. Nice, pretty African violet, that miniature, and this crushed glass in your stone. And this will grow very easily. This pepperoni might get a little bit taller, but the African violet's going to stay pretty compact. Your pink splash here, as it gets taller, you can keep it pinched, and it'll stay right in here too.
And now this is an open terrarium, so it's going to require a little more misting. It's probably beneficial for the African violet. It won't get too much condensation on the plant, on the fuzzy leaves. It'll keep it a little drier, but still, because of the height of the glass, it will form condensation and it won't need to be watered as much.
Like this closed one here, I probably wouldn't suggest an African violet. It doesn't like a lot of water on its foliage. So I would stick more to more of your moisture-loving ones, which is your mosses, your ferns. Your nephitis can handle that moisture. So I would stick to something like that. And if you do have a lot of condensation on the sides, I usually suggest just tilt up that top until you get a little bit better of a balance. But you can go for like a month or 2 months at least without any kind of water at all once you get a little bit more of that balance going on. Okay, next.
Well, if you don't like to water at all, or if you're, now I will say these will work even if your house is very dry. Because of the height of the glass or the covering on the glass, the condensation, keep it watered and the plant will not dry out. But if you are really neglectful, like I can be, succulents in a garden, and you want to speak to that, Sylvia? We just brought a little one with us. Because it was so cold out, we did not bring a vast amount of plant material, but succulents are like foolproof in a terrarium.
Right, and what I do like about succulents is the same thing. You put the rock on the bottom. I use cactus soil because you want a soil that is very quick draining. And then I use some sand. And you can use any colored sand if you wanted. So I kind of kept this really light theme, kind of like a white, bright theme. Your succulents, most of them will store their water in the foliage. So again, you do not have to have a lot of watering added to it. Your cactus here, I selected one that is like kind of like an old man cactus, so it has a little bit more of that fur. Again, it's going to store a lot of water in the cactus itself. They have a very shallow root system, so you don't need a big depth on here. And I put a little bit of a jade in there too, and the jade might need to be pruned. But by adding a little bit of glass, you get that little glitz. Again, you can use different colored sand to it if you'd like. And watering on this is probably maybe once a month, if that. So whenever you water plants, you want to make sure you give them a good thorough drink and let them go dry again between waterings. Don't just keep teasing it with a couple dribbles. Give it a decent drink, then let it go dry again.
And then very popular, and I just love them to death, in the bromeliad family are air plants. And they kind of make their own little terrarium in these glass bubbles. And you can hang them anywhere. You can buy the air plants, put them together yourself, or you can buy them already assembled. And you want to talk about air plants a little bit?
Yes, I do love these.
They're like moss. They're in the same family as moss. They'll just grow on anything or anywhere as long as they aren't too wet.
That's right. Naturally, they just grow in like nooks of trees, maybe on the field, on the tropical floor, so there's not any soil that's around. So what they do is that they collect the moisture and the nutrients right from the rainwater, right? They have little scales, so they just kind of collect it like that. So we have that one there, and actually another plant that's in the bromeliad family is a pineapple. Pineapple too. So you could just have everybody taking that pineapple off the top and just stuck it in some soil and start a new pineapple. But it really doesn't need much soil whatsoever. And these are pretty much self-sufficient. So all we do is we just mist these.
Take that one.
Take that. So these just need to be mist frequently and soaked occasionally. So if it is quite warm, what you're going to do is if the plant looks a little shrivelly, just take it out and just soak it in a little bowl of water and then put it back in.
And you're not disturbing the roots. It has very, very shallow root.
Yep, so this is it. It's never really going to get a lot of root onto it.
And that's the whole plant.
And that's the whole plant. And then I just kind of stick it in the rock just to give it a little bit of support to make it stand up and to give it some color. And this is a great little gift item. And you can hang them in the window as long as it's not a sunny window. So maybe a north window, maybe an east window, depending if you have trees. But I would definitely not hang them in a southern or a western window.
Hang them in a steamy bathroom. You may never have to mist them.
Yeah.
Because they'll get enough humidity from the air.
Mm-hmm. So we have that one. And there's tons and tons of different kinds of tillandsia. This one here is a little bit finer of a one. I think that one there's the Medusa, that little small one. It looks like Medusa's hair. So again, and we just decorated, added more color with the butterfly or the dragonfly. Fun little thing. And then the last one.
Well, another
this is fairly new. What's old is new again. So we've gone into
cloche. Typically, you might see an orchid under glass like this, but any plant, you're going to collect the humidity, you're going to put the plant in a saucer with a pebble or glass or gravel bottom, so that's where you would water the plant from, and then protect it from the elements or just make a beautiful display by having it under glass. And this is our newest type of garden, and I'm going to let Sylvia speak to it because she didn't discover it, but discovered it for us.
What's old is new again, right? So this is called a kokedama ball. Kokedama is like a form of bonsai. It's a Japanese thing, and what they do is that they take a root ball, just some soil, and they put like a basic soil. I used that soil there, and then I incorporated some bonsai soil and made it very muddy. So, and then you just keep making it into a ball, making it into a ball, making it into a ball.
We made a lot of jokes about throwing mud balls when she was making this. That it should be snowballs, but it was January, so it was mud balls.
And then what I do is I just made a little bit, kind of cracked it open a little bit, and I inserted a small plant. So you can insert, I made this one fairly big. This is one of the first ones I have done. And then I just covered it with a sheet moss, which you can get sheet moss at a lot of flower shops. I didn't bring a sheet moss in. And then you take a cotton string, and then I just hold the cotton string and I just keep wrapping it and wrapping it and wrapping it until it creates this moisture ball. So this is all it's going to need. Other types of plants that would look really kind of fun in there is like a rabbit's foot fern, how it has the little fronds on it, and that would engulf this whole thing. So this is all it's going to need. And by acting similar to a bonsai, it's kind of restricting where it can grow to. So it's kind of limiting it, so it's going to stunt the growth a little bit by limiting the soil ball.
And it will become a root ball, inside the soil as the plant grows.
Yes, and so all it's going to need again is misting, and if it's feeling very dry, then I would just give it a light soaking again in warm water. If the foliage is looking very pale, it's like, wow, that really needs a little bit of fertilizer. The same thing is I would put it in a dish of diluted, keep it very diluted, because you don't want to fertilize something, you don't want to get active growth onto something if you're trying to keep it small. Same thing with your dish gardens. You don't want to give it much fertilizer, only if the plants are looking very pale or they're looking deficient. Then you want to just give it a watered down version. Because otherwise you're going to be pruning this thing every couple weeks.
If you put healthy plants in your terrarium to start, it's going to be a long time before they need any feed. The root ball that they have already has what they need in it, and they're growing slowly, and they have enough moisture that's being created inside the container. So they don't really need to be fertilized. Be a long period of time. Sylvia?
Yes.
Over that plant is wider than the dish.
Yes.
So if I had that on my dining room wood table, would I have to be worried about my wood getting moisture under that cloche?
Yes. Yes. It's only because that's the size saucer I had at the store. And I was like, oh, this would look really kind of fun in that. So yes, I would definitely find a saucer that the cloche fits right onto. Exactly. Yeah, because otherwise it would drip down onto the table rather than back into the saucer, which you would want to keep that cycle going. Exactly.
This was for demonstration purposes only.
Yes.
Not practical. We're not going to leave it in there forever.
Right. Now, you could even do something like this too. I don't even mind some kind of flowering plants, then, because it just gives it that definitely a finished look. And again, I would put a saucer that would support this cloche and have it in there. Again, too much moisture, you can always just tip up one edge and let some air evaporate through it, moisture evaporate, and then you can put it back on. But these are wonderful pieces. Yes?
2 questions. How do you decide if your terrarium should be open or closed at the top or the bottom or whatever? And the other question is, with winter upon us and being so cold and heat so expensive, what does one do in terms of heat for these plants? Do they need?
Actually, if it's a closed one, I think it's going to stay warm in there because it's almost like the little micro environment. So I'm going to say this will probably be warmer in here than your outside soil would be, your outside air would be in here because it's a little bit more confined.
Also, unless you're keeping your house at 40, in the 60s, low 60s, they're going to be fine for a period of time.
50s will even be acceptable because if you look at the weather in Florida that's having they have a chance of frost, they'll have, you might get a little bit of chilling going on. If plants are cold, one of the first signs is that you're not going to have to water them as much because they're not needing that moisture. And sometimes their leaves will look a little bit transparent. Some are a little bit more susceptible to showing that than other ones, but most plants can take 50 degrees. It's not not forever, but for a period of time. And the other part is you don't want to put them right on top of a heater either, wherever the vents come out. That's not good either, drying the plants out even more.
How do you decide?
Open or closed? Depends on the container.
And the plants.
Yeah, I wouldn't put like I said, I wouldn't put an African violet into it. I would stick more to your mosses or something that can hold that extra moisture. Ivies can tolerate some good moisture. I wouldn't put succulents in a closed one. So flowering, because if it's and a lot of moisture, a lot of that flowering one, the petals will probably maybe start a little bit of botrytis on it or something like that because they don't like to have the petals wet on most flowers. So I would stick to more foliage. Welcome. Yes?
Have you ever tried seasonal terrariums? That is, you draw your plants and mosses and so on from outdoor sources. And when the weather gets cold, you simply put this away to be dormant during that period. They survive very well.
Right, depends on your plant product that you're choosing.
What you're getting something that's indigenous to
The area.
Exactly.
right off your own property.
Yeah, yeah. I have like this trough. What's that made of? It's like a concrete and straw mixture. Yes, I have one of those troughs like this, and I put it on there, and I have a couple little trees and shrubs in there that I had gotten more dwarf ones, but I put moss that is right in my backyard and put it onto it. And all I do is I just take it and put it on the side of my shed and just throw some leaves on it. Another thing I've started too is we've done this, the pallet program. Have you seen the pallets where they make them into planters? That's been a lot of fun. And I put perennials in it. So what you do is that you take your fabric, your weed fabric, and you staple it to the back of the pallet. You lay it down, you fill it up with soil, then you put plants in it. And I put a combination of perennials and some annuals. Let it sit there until maybe like a week or so, and then stand it up. So you have this beautiful pallet leaning against your back of your garage, your fence, wherever you want to add a little bit of color to it.
And the perennials will overwinter?
The perennials will overwinter. So that's what I did is my husband and I put the pallet again behind the shed there, and we just covered it up with leaves. And I'm looking forward to it coming back. So I don't hens and chickens, sedums, things like that, that a juga that would, can take a little bit of torture, I want to call it. So
Well,
that's exciting.
The type of terrarium you're speaking to, I remember as a Girl Scout, I believe, collecting in the woods moss and winterberry and creating a terrarium environment and then having them in the house. I don't think we did the dormant period with them, but it's another way to create a terrarium with the things that grow in your yard, natural product. If you look online, nowadays they discourage you because so many ferns are maybe endangered or so on, but typically if it's something you have around your house, in your yard, they do make nice terrariums when they're low-growing small plants. And that's a wonderful feature that they can be dormant in a cold spot and then regenerate in the spring.
What about cactus? If you had a little arrangement of cactus in there, how can you tell when they need water? The
Cactus
moisture?
normally store most of the moisture in the cactus itself.
Yeah.
So if it's a cactus, you'll start looking a little shrivelly. So they'll start getting smaller. That's why a lot of them have this, I want to say like an accordion pleated. So as they take the water up, they expand, and as they start using that water, they'll get a little bit thinner, a little bit shrivelier. So I would wait until it gets a little bit softer, I want to say. When they're fully hydrated, they'll be very turgid. They'll be very hard. So I'd wait a little bit while that's how I would tell if it needed water or not.
Thank you.
Yes?
I was going to ask about renovations. Like, when I've made these, all of a sudden I say, oh, I just hate that thing in the corner, I want to change it. Do you sort of suggest starting from scratch all over again? Or like if you want to clean out water spots, when you're staring at that little space, you want things to look almost perfect.
Yes.
You know what I mean? You just,
Yes.
You know how when some, like, you might...
I wouldn't be afraid to either prune it or take it out and put it again, because I think you can almost make it seasonal. That's why I even brought in some of like these little jingle bells, or why not change out some of your stones or some of your decorations that you have on it. It would really look cute if you put those little teeny tiny millimeter balls for Christmas, or you could put a little St. Patrick's heart in it. So you can kind of decorate it seasonally also. I think that's
But is
part
it
of the
okay
fun.
to take out a plant?
It's okay to take it out, exactly. And if you have a little bit of a water problem, I might even use like a cloth on a stick and just kind of keep scrubbing it. And also, if you're going to be watering plants, I usually suggest that you let the water sit overnight. So any of your some
Chlorine,
of your chlorine,
yeah.
things like that will dissipate before you water the plant. So if you let that sit there overnight, the water, that'll definitely help keeping some of that lining and some of that marking on your glass. I wouldn't use any window cleaner or anything like that. I would just, use less plain water just to kind of work it. And if it's that bad, I would probably take it apart myself. Yeah. Any other question? Yes.
Pyracantha. It's a vine-like,
Pyracantha?
yes.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought maybe I could keep it, the berries. And I can't recall now if I think I put them in Oasis, but they shriveled.
Yeah.
Is there any way that you could keep them? I love the colors.
They are. The colors is wonderful, but probably not. Yeah. I'm going to say they're going to fall off, especially once you start getting them inside. There's not much that you can do with a lot of that. I know. I wish you could. Sometimes you can use like a spray. The old-fashioned word was you sprayed a bunch of lacquer hairspray, you know what I mean? It kind of just glued it back on there, makes it stay on it. But I don't know of any magical way that it can make it stay onto it. Yeah, some things are like that. Yes?
Years ago at this very church, during their holiday time, I bought a terrarium from a woman, and she actually got this little plant. It was either in Massachusetts or New Hampshire, I'm not quite sure. But it was a little tiny leaf kind of a thing with little red berries, and it grew very low to the ground. Do you have
It sounds like a winterberry, just
Yeah,
a little
like
fine.
a little, well, I don't know if that's the right word, but
I don't know the botanical name for it, but we would pick it outside too, on some of that.
in the woods.
Yeah.
Have you seen it?
In a wetter area, I would say it would always seem to be in a wetter area that I had seen it. A little bit more of a wet area.
But not, it's not something we've come across propagated
Right, for resale.
for resale. That was what we used in Girl Scouts too.
Yeah.
It has a little bit of a variegated leaf and a little red berry.
Just remember
It was very low
so
growing.
beautiful.
And I don't have the botanical name either, and I should from
Back then.
New England Botany, yes.
Where did you go in Girl Scouts?
Well, just locally, Western Massachusetts.
Yeah. I'd like to find that.
They probably have houses built on that area now. You know? Any other questions? It's definitely been a joy being here, and I'm sharing this with you. I do love plants. I still love plants. And when I see a new plant or something new or something old that's been come back to life, I always get excited about that. And I think that's why I love going to garden clubs, because I get to share that with you. And I'm sure you get excited about different plants and things like that, too.
And we get ideas from you, too.
Exactly.
On YouTube, they had, when they were showing how to make terrariums, some of the longer skinny things where you couldn't get your hand down, they took rolls of paper and made like a cone and put it in and dropped the things in this way.
That's
And
exactly-
So, so you don't get all the sides of the terrarium all dirty and everything.
Yeah.
It worked out really good.
One of my other favorite tools is hot dog tongs. You know what I mean? Is like, so in instance, trying to get into here, and I think I even used it when I was getting to the smaller one, and I just used that. And those tongs are excellent when you want to use cactus too. So by either using the tong, or sometimes I'll roll up newspaper and make just like a little band, and you can hold the cactus that way. And if you make the band thick enough, you can almost hold the sides of it to try to plant with. And that's what I did to get this glass in here, is I just made a funnel out of paper, just like this. You know, I just made the funnel like this, and then I put it right where I want it to be, and that's where I poured the soil or poured the stuff into it. Yes. So that's a nice little trick on that too. Yes.
Thank you so much for your wonderful program.
You're very welcome.
Very interesting and informative.
Thank you.
Appreciate you being here.